If we think about strength and time relative to hydration, we can think of, again, this idea of this crystal formation. Strength and time sort of looks like this. Okay? Where strength, and this is normal concrete, strength increases very quickly in the first day, first 3 days, first 7 days. And, but at the same time, as it goes on, it's generally leveling. It's not going as fast from in the first 3 days than it is in the second 3 days, even though that sort of looks like it is on my graph. Why is it not going as quickly in the first second 3 days as the first 3 days? Well, because the hydration is going slower. The crystal formation is going slower. Okay? But it's still going up at a pretty good clip. All right? First 7 days is going to hydrate. The strength gain is going to be a lot quicker than the second 7 days. Okay? And so on and so forth. We generally, when we talk about in design, when we talk about specifying strength, we generally target the 28-day strength in concrete. When we're designing or specifying stuff, it's very common for us to say, oh, the concrete strength, and we specify the concrete strength at 28 days. That's just sort of the norm, okay? Doesn't mean we can't specify concrete strength at some other time period. We can say, hey, I'd like a concrete strength at 7 days of this, or at 56 days of that. Or 3 days or 1 day. I mean, if you're in the precasting business, generally they're looking at developing strengths very, very quickly. So when they talk about strengths, they might be talking after a day, after 2 days, after 3 days, because again, they want to put it in there and they want to get it out so they can reuse their yards and set it up for another project. But for normal cast-in-place concrete, again, 28-day is sort of our targeted or our specified strength. Okay? But we do know in normal concrete that there are sort of relationships. We do know that there's a relationship between 7 and 28 days. Or we do know that there's a relationship between 3 and 28 days. Now, are those perfect relationships? No. But are they general relationships? Yeah. Most people, if you had no admixtures in a concrete, most people could look at a 3-day strength and say, that's probably roughly about 50% of what you're going to get at 28 days. Okay? So it increases much more quickly in the first 3 days than it does in the next 25 days. 7 to 28 days, most people would say probably around 70%, 75%. Okay? So you'll notice when they do quality control testing of concrete, it's not unusual for them to take maybe 4 or 5 cylinders, maybe test a cylinder at 3 days, maybe test another one at 7 days, then maybe a couple at 28 days, just because they're gauging those early cylinders just to give them sort of a preview of what might be happening later on in their test. Okay? So strength is, strength's important for us. All right? And specifying strength. The specified compressive strength, you already know this. You'll use a symbol F with a prime and a C. That is the again, the specified or the design compressive strength. And again, if we don't say anything other than F prime C, then we are going to assume F prime C means 28 days. If we're going to say compressive strength and we want some other time period, then we're going to say 7 days or whatever else it is. right? Concrete's good in compression. That's why we use it. Concrete's a good compressive material. How do we, well, I talked about quality control testing. How do we test this to make sure that I end up with my specified strength? Well, with compression, you know what it's going to mean is I'm going to take cylinders. I'm going to take a cylinder. We're going to do this in lab. But you basically take a cylinder, you put it into a testing machine. The testing machine is going to put a compressive load on it. It's going to break it. You take that load, you divide it by that cross-sectional area, and load divided by area gives you strength. You would then measure that strength up with the strength that's been specified. Now again, if you really got into it, there's acceptance thresholds that the ACI, the American Concrete Institute, has for is this acceptable concrete or not. But I mean, in general, what we're doing is we're taking a look at our testing and comparing that to the specified value and say, hey, does it work or not? Okay? The typical cylinder is a 6x12 cylinder, traditional, although they have actually adopted smaller cylinders for use. A 4x8 cylinder is a recognized alternative now. Okay? But there's a little deal there, whereas they take a test, quote unquote, a test, when the ACI is talking about quality control testing, is the average of 2 big cylinders. That is a test. Okay? If you're using smaller cylinders, they'll require 3, the average is 3, to constitute a test. All right? But it's done the same. Whether you're using big cylinders, small cylinders, it's the same thing. Stick it in a machine, break it, load divided by area, that's your strength. Compare the strength to the specified strength. Okay? All right. Questions?